It's Alexandra Morton here on April the 7th, 2013, on a beautiful sunny day, and I'm talking to you on photo booth. That's because I remain concerned about the 500,000 Atlantic salmon that Marine Harvest put into BC waters about a month ago, right on the migration route of the Fraser Sockeye and all the East Vancouver Island rivers and the mainland river south of Cape Caution. A lot of fish are currently and over the next few months going to be swimming by that farm, taking in water that's coming out of that farm and potentially being infected by this virus. Scientific literature says contain it, it spreads easily, can impact wild populations, it can even damage the mussels. Scientists are saying wild salmon might not be able to swim up a river if they're infected with this virus and it causes disease. So I've been writing to the federal government, the province, Marine Harvest, others, and nobody seems willing or perhaps able to do anything about this. And so this made me wonder about what does the international community think of this kind of behavior, of Canada risking wild salmon populations with Atlantic farm salmon disease? Well, interesting. In 2010, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, wrote a regulatory impact analysis statement, and they actually recommended an intervention because the way Canada was treating its wild fisheries in relation to farm salmon disease was reducing Canada's market share in Europe. In other words, Europe was really not interested in buying BC farm salmon if they were going to be destroying their wild fisheries. I know there's also issues with the United States because the Toronto Star published a remark by the US FDA saying they do not want ISA-infected fish to come into the United States from Canada. And yet the CFIA is actually allowing companies now to grow ISA-infected salmon and market them. And so you got to wonder, are the companies sorting the fish out so the clean fish are going to the United States and meeting their standards, and the diseased fish are staying in British Columbia? No, that can't be. That's kind of what happened with the XL food scandal. There was that CFIA memo from 2008. It said, oh, the meat going to Canada could have a little bit of fecal splatter on it, but the stuff going to Japan, well, you better clean that up. That triggered an audit of the CFIA by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. So surely Canada's not doing that again. So I don't know where that ISA-infected fish is going. But back to this regulatory document, this recognition that the CFI has that there's a problem with farm salmon disease affecting wild salmon, a problem in terms of trade. This document recognized that the wild fishery is much bigger than the farm fishery. And I hope that all you candidates, all people who are planning to run as an MLA for British Columbia will really look at these facts and others and see just how small the salmon feedlot industry is in British Columbia in terms of wages and product value. The CFIA document said that in 2006, the wild fisheries employed 51,462 people, but the aquaculture industry all across Canada employed 3,970 people. If you look at just the BC statistics, so this is produced by BC Stats, in BC, sport fishing is 48.8% of the BC gross domestic fish-related product, whereas aquaculture is 9.3%. Aquaculture is 1/5 of the wild fishery. Sport and wild fisheries combined brought in $1,282 million into this province. Aquaculture brought $469 million, less than half. BC stats show that the number of aquaculture jobs really has not grown since 1990, even though the value of the product has grown 5 times. They did not share that with the small towns where they cited themselves. So in 1990, there was 1,500 jobs. In 2011, there was 1,700 jobs. Only 200 more jobs, even though the value of the product went up 5 times. Sport fishing makes 8.25 jobs per million. Aquaculture only makes 3.59, half the jobs per $1 million. Spin-off jobs, indirect and induced. I don't really know what induced means. It sounds a little uncomfortable, but anyway, it's a BC number, and it says that aquaculture makes 7.8 jobs per million of spin-off. Sport fishing makes 11 0.36 jobs per million. Wages are like 4 times for the wild fishery versus fish farming. If you add to that wilderness tourism, which is bear watching, whale watching, cruising, kayaking, a $1.6 billion industry in British Columbia, the numbers are going to start to skyrocket. And all of those businesses absolutely require wild salmon. So if you look at what happened to Canada in the beginning, when these fish farmers first came here and they wanted to bring in Atlantic salmon, their money fish, the fish that grew well in captivity, the Atlantic salmon, many scientists said no. Many government scientists said no. You're going to bring in diseases you've never even heard of, which is exactly what has happened. But they were ignored because the theory was that if British Columbia created an uneven playing field for these companies, that things were different in Canada than in the other countries, that trade sanctions could be levied against this country. Punishment for doing that. Well, now, I think it's the other way around. I think that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has made things better for fish farmers in Canada than probably anywhere else, because they're allowing them to grow ISA-infected fish and sell them. Everywhere else, you got to kill them. That's a cost of doing business. It protects your business, and it protects the wild fishery and the wild fish economy. And so I think that all of you MLAs that are coming to this election should look at this, and is the salmon farming industry actually threatening trade sanctions against Canada and British Columbia? I could be wrong, but the CFIA is clearly concerned enough to do an intervention. I also want to say that on April the 18th, Dr. David Suzuki is going to join me for a showing of Salmon Confidential, the film that shows the government cover-up around fish farm disease and what is really going on here. And we will be at the Stanley Theater on April 18th at 7 p.m. You can buy tickets online. Thank you so much, Dr. Suzuki, for your help with this. I will keep you updated, and please ask your candidates, will they get the salmon feedlot industry out of the wild migration routes of British Columbia's wild salmon for economic reasons, never mind everything else, for the economy of British Columbia? Thank you very much.